Hi, I'm David Joshua Vales here on the DJVonFire podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, hit notifications. We are weeks into this thing, so you can go back and see some great interviews, getting to know quite a few people, both in leadership and people that you may not have even recognized as being going to the church, and yet here we are. Today's guest comes to us from, where are you from?
Romeoville.
Romeoville. And he is normally I have to try to go out and get guests, and they turn me down. And he was on my short list of people to ask. And of course, the Lord last week, he walked up to me and was like, "Hey, can I get on that podcast?" I'm like, "Of course you can, because you're supposed to be on it." So, Derrick Szymanski Jr.
Yep.
Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. And you said Romeo Van. And so start us out with how did you make it to second place again? Like, why are you here? Or how long have you been here?
So I started coming shortly after second place launched. So I'm almost a starter, but missed it by a couple weeks, I think. The way I found out about second place was at the time I was seeing a Christian counselor because I was in the middle of dealing with my mom's second bout with cancer. And so rather than seeing a normal psychiatrist or psychologist, I decided to look up a Christian counselor to try and get the Lord's help with that, get some more biblical perspective to it. And her and her husband had came to the very first service, but didn't feel that it was for them. And so during one of our sessions, we were talking, and she asked if I had a church home. And I told her I didn't. And so during our conversation, how I described what I was looking for in a church, she recommended coming to check out second place. So I looked it up, came, and I've been coming ever since. So, like I said, I've been here almost since the beginning.
You're a quiet one, though, and I'm a quiet one. So it's when you told me that you were here from the beginning, or just about, 2010 at some point,
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. We sat together last year at the 10th anniversary. That's kind of weird. And I know that you think about it, because we had in February, we were able to get together, if anybody remembers, and we just had a nice meal together. But you were at our table, and of course, introvert, quiet guy. Didn't say much to each other. Our conversation, the other people at the table, but. And so here we are a year later, and literally we're recording this on the anniversary of second place, 11 years. Some people call it a birthday, but, and here we are sitting down having a conversation. That's why this podcast exists, just to sit down. You've watched a few of the podcasts.
Every one of them.
Every single one of them.
Yep.
So at this point, 5, 6. What's interesting about them? What are you getting out of them? Or what stood out of a specific person that you're like, well, I didn't know that about them? Anybody that... We're throwing questions at you. We always do this, just so you know. We have a couple of talking points, and then the rest is unscripted. So this is kind of an unscripted. What did you get in, or what are you seeing, or how come you wanted to be on it because of all that?
So for years, I've listened to various podcasts on and off, and one of the things that I enjoy the most about it is just the conversation that happens, because like some of the people that I've listened to in the past, their podcasts, like one of the things that they always talked about is, you go on to like Johnny Carson or, one of those late night shows, you only have a few minutes to talk. And, they didn't feel like they really get to know the person. It's just more of a sales pitch than anything. And so that's what sparked them to create their own podcast, to have long form conversations and try and actually get to know their guests and let their guests be themselves rather than having to put on a front or something like that. So once I started getting into them, it was just interesting to hear, different thoughts that the people had, different aspects of their life journey and stuff like that. So when I heard about this one coming along, I was like, awesome. Now I can, hear the thoughts of, the people that I see all the time at the church, and, maybe learn something new that I hadn't, which... being the introvert that I am, I'm going to be learning a lot of new things, in watching these. So, as far as something standing out, it's hard to say, because right now my life's been kind of crazy with starting a new job and leaving one, and just trying to get get kind of my plan in motion again
Mm-hmm.
for what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy watching them. I try to make some kind of comment, whether it's just, hey, great show or whatever.
Yeah.
I try to comment something. I definitely always like them. Do the thumbs up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm a people watcher. I've always been that way, which is part of my introvertness is I observe, I learn, I study,
Yeah.
kind of subconsciously I study behaviors and mannerisms and things, and that's how I get a feel for people, and just how I've always been.
That's a great explanation for an introvert. It's not that you don't want to engage. It's the way that it's your belief system. I've been big on a belief system lately because everything kind of boils down to your belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you think or the way you act should always come down to that belief system, which is probably why we're Christian, but you want to have some place to stake that belief. But how you act it out then is, like you said, you're just kind of like reading the room, getting a sense of things, your safety. Maybe I'm speaking more for myself, but we're similar. Like, I just feel comfortable getting to see the situation first before I then engage in the situation a little bit. It helps. So if you're an extrovert and you're like, just come on out and party, like, we just need time. It's not that we don't want to. It's just like, give us a minute, let us come at our own pace, like test the waters, then we'll jump in and, can have those deep, meaningful conversations.
And it's funny because my shyness or introvertness actually almost didn't land me a job in the past. When I first started coming to second place, I was actually working 2 jobs at that time, one of them being a part-time job with GameStop.
Okay.
And when I had interviewed for that job, my manager had said that he was nervous about hiring me or offering me the position because I was very quiet,
Mm-hmm.
didn't have much with retail experience, and so he wasn't sure how I was going to do. But he never regretted it because one of my hobbies or my interest is video games.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I can easily talk to people about. You come in, you ask me about a game, especially one that I really like.
Yeah.
You might not get me to shut up for a while. So it was pretty easy for me to get into it and, be able to pick up like, hey, welcome to GameStop,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff, and, do the sales pitches. And I wasn't always the greatest of salesmen, but I definitely could answer the questions.
Yeah, when it's something that you're comfortable with, and obviously the conversation, you can let it flow. And it's tough to get that out in an interview or a discussion of like, because you're not talking about that topic. So one of the things though we've challenged, if you've seen the podcast, is like, if you're nervous about that, then that's what you have to.
Mm-hmm.
If you're nervous about talking to people, then that's what I think you need to do is talk to people. I don't like the way I sound. I don't like the way I look on camera. We've mentioned just today, some people are like, I've done the podcast and I haven't even watched myself back because they're like, to me, if you don't want to do it, and other than being illegal, then that's the thing you should do though, right? It's like, if you're nervous, if you're fearful of something, is there anything you're afraid of? I would say that public speaking.
No,
no,
not really, because I've done that a few times.
Okay.
I don't really know.
Nothing that jumps out at you, snakes or.
No, there's things that I'm not particularly fond of.
Yeah.
But not necessarily afraid of. Like if I have to confront snakes, bugs, whatever, I'll confront them and stuff.
Yeah.
I've got a sibling that does have a phobia of insects, and so. Being the big brother that I am,
I know where this is going.
I'm the one that if it's really that bad for her, I'll go over and take care of it.
Okay, that was going better than I thought. I thought it was going to be you helped stoke the phobia. No, you took care of it. You took care of it. All right.
I don't try to add to it because it's
So big brother, how many?
Just me and my sister.
Just you and your sister. How much younger is she? She's younger.
Yes.
You said. Yeah.
She's 5.5, 6, somewhere around that. Yeah, 5. Sorry.
All right. We were going to talk hobbies because you got some hobbies. I noticed your shirt.
Yes.
Are you a sci-fi, so who's on your shirt?
This is Mechagodzilla from the 70s.
Okay, I'm a Godzilla fan. Back I grew up with Godzilla. My dad, Saturday afternoon, he's watching Godzilla. King Kong wasn't in the same realm, but they did fight. Is there
Yeah, there was late
was a
70s, early
crossover.
80s. They had the
Okay.
first one, and now they're coming out with the new one with the new Godzilla universe,
Okay.
MonsterVerse thing.
So don't go shutting this off because you think we're going to nerd out on you. But we're talking about interests here, and so I noticed your shirt. I'm a big Godzilla fan. My kids are Godzilla fans, maybe because of me. But what else what other hobbies or talk about Godzilla or whatever else you do?
Yeah. So obviously the Godzilla, which is part of the reason why I wore the shirt, because it's one of my favorite things. I have almost all of the Godzilla movies. I think I'm missing 2. So I'm working on trying to find those last 2 so I could have the whole collection for myself.
Yeah.
I've also got some Gamera movies, which is the giant fire-breathing turtle, for those that don't know.
What is it?
Gamera.
Okay.
So same realm as kind of Godzilla stuff. I like watching various anime and anime shows, which are Japanese cartoons for those that aren't familiar with them. And one of the series that I like to watch or have followed for a long time is called Gundam, and they make model kits. So this is one of the ones that I put together. This is actually the original Gundam.
All right, freeze right there. Push your drink back. Is anybody that was watching this already saw the straw in the video? I just noticed that straw.
Sorry.
No, that was my fault. So if anybody saw that, there you go. We caught it ourselves. All right, go ahead.
So in the original anime and comic book series, this was the first Gundam that came about. The mythos for that is it takes place in the future. Civilization is advanced enough where instead of having what we know as tanks, where they drive on treads and everything, they now have humanoid ones. And a few years ago, there was a movie called Pacific Rim that kind of is the same concept. There's humans inside that pilot it and have fights, except the Gundam universe doesn't deal with the kaiju or the giant monsters like Godzilla or whatever.
Right. I like that movie, by the way. I wasn't sure if I was going to totally buy into it, and it was an interesting watch. Pacific Rim.
Yeah. So when I got into model kit building, I had originally started out with doing some cars. I tried doing some military jets and stuff, but I stumbled on to the Gundams, and so I was like, "This is really cool." They got lightsaber swords, and they got guns and all sorts of stuff. So I started putting them together, and that's what drew me into reading the comics and watching the cartoons and just following it in general. And so I've put together probably 50 or so of them. There's different grades. There's ones that are called high grade, which are kind of real basic, simple, to perfect grade, which are about that tall and very complex, have a lot of little parts and everything. The one that I'm showing here is considered a master grade, so that's in the middle of them. And it's just something I just really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
It helps me relax, just gets my mind off of everything going on in the world for however long I'm working on it. I like painting them, putting them together, and displaying them.
So do you have a huge room, or is it throughout your house?
Well, right now I'm living with my dad, so
Okay.
my space is very limited. I did put up a couple shelves so I could actually start displaying some of them. With this new job, my goal is to get my finances cleaned up and actually start saving up, so that way within the next year or so I can actually try and buy a place of my own.
And have a room.
Have the whole house. My goal is to, when I do get a house of my own, to do like what I did in my room, put a shelf kind of system all the way around, and so that way I can display all the different ones, and hopefully have enough space to display them all, because I have a backlog of 30 kits or more that I still have to put together.
To still put together?
Yes.
But you got, I mean, that's nice that you've got them to. Now, are there trade shows and things, or things you go to where people are? Yeah,
there's. So I go to, one of my hobbies is to go to conventions.
Oh, yeah. Which you haven't gone to one, right? Or have they had them?
Not this last year. They canceled all of them, unfortunately. And that, for me, conventions have always been my vacation.
Yeah, okay.
Not that I really travel. I go to local ones, but it's 2 to 3 days where I'm just around people that are interested in the same kind of stuff that I'm in. people dress up in costumes, and some of them are really awesome. The amount of detail and time that you can tell that they put into them. And then other people just throw something on, and it's like, okay, but it's just really cool, and I feel comfortable there, even though like I don't really like big crowds in general, but being there, I'm not.
You feel at home.
Yeah, and so there's vendors, there's local artists that go there, and they try to sell their comic books that they created themselves.
Is this Comic-Con? Like, if anybody knows that name, or is this something different?
Yeah, it's basically
the same
Comic-Con.
thing.
There's different kinds. So like the Chicago main one is called C2E2, and I go to that one with my sister. We've been going to that for several years. One of the first ones that I started going to was called ASIN, or Anime Central, and that one's based on the Japanese manga or comics and that culture. And a couple years ago, I started going to one called Gen Con, which is all about board games. And they have just vendors that bring in their board games. They got new ones, they got existing ones. And so we like going to that too, because me and her have gotten big into playing all sorts of different types of board games, not the normal.
Right, not the normal, but is there something on the verge you think that some people would have heard of that, you know what I mean? Like, what is it, Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah. So they have ones that are based on like Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. So instead of having to buy all sorts of books and have somebody write up a storyline, there's actually like games that have pre-made adventures. And I have a few of these ones, and they're my favorite to play because they have tiles that you randomly draw out.
Yeah.
You place it down, and then that sets up like a new room for you to go into. And then based on what they have on the tile, you place a certain type of monster or draw cards or whatever, and you work as a group to progress through to a certain objective. And so I enjoy those. There's other ones that are more puzzle or mystery or, all different kinds.
Are these games you have to play with other people, or no, you can play it alone?
Some of them you can play on your own.
Okay.
Others you do have to have a couple people. So I've got, I have one that technically I could play on my own, but it's much more fun playing with multiple people.
Yeah.
And it's based off of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
And so you get a couple tiles, and there's a mission. You play through the mission. Depending on how the mission ends, determines like the setup for the next mission.
Yeah.
And you play through, and the company that built that has one based off of the Batman the Animated Series cartoon coming out later on this year, which I'm looking forward to. And then I have one that is a mech fighter game. And so you have this big board, and it's a city, and you get to choose a pilot and a mech, and you duke it out in the city, and you get to destroy buildings and damage each other and all sorts of crazy moves and stuff. So
yeah. Is there something similar you can do online versus other people?
There are.
You just don't do it. I mean,
I haven't gotten into it.
Yeah. I was just wondering if it moves to the tech world.
Yeah, there's a lot of these companies actually have where you can kind of demo their board game before it releases, and I can't remember the exact site, but there is like an online portal where you could go and they have a virtual version of the board game and you can play it. And then some of the companies, they create actual video games based off of their board games. Like one is, I think it's called Colony of Mars or something like that. And it's a game that I've been interested in getting the board game of, and I haven't picked it up yet, but it's kind of like Settlers of Catan. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are familiar with Settlers of Catan because it's resource building and kind of trying to dominate the board. So this Mars one is kind of a similar concept, but it takes place in space. So being a sci-fi nerd that I am, that interests me more than old farmsteads.
How long do these games last? As short as a couple hours, and as long as you're going to stop and come back tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, there's some, depending on what the game is and stuff, it could be as short as in half an hour. And then there's others that can just keep going on forever. Yeah. Like one of those Dungeons and Dragons ones that I was talking about, I was playing it with a group of my sister's friends, and we started out and we had the worst draw ever. We got the final boss right at the beginning.
Okay.
And so he just showed up and he just wiped us all out. And we were done like a half an hour because we just were not prepared for
Right.
that fight. We couldn't get out of his way or
You got to
whatever.
build up resources quicker, or
There's I mean, like
why would you have been stronger if you waited? If you would,
you can actually level up in the
Okay.
game, and so you can unlock like more skills
Right.
or whatever. But it was just we weren't expecting it. It was like I said, it was just the worst luck that we ever.
I love that
had.
it's still on your it's so fresh in your memory that
Yeah.
it's a game you'll never forget the way
Yeah.
you played where the boss came
Because
out.
it was we'd never had that happen before. It was just literally like draw the first card. Oh, you got the boss, and he lands right in front of you. Okay. All right. But yeah, I mean, we were throwing everything that we could at him, and just the way that his stats were and ours or whatever, we just couldn't do enough damage to him to kill him, and too many of us died too quickly, and so we ended up losing.
Going back to the models a little bit, because you said it's just a way to relax, and on my podcast, as you've heard, we've talked about meditation and prayer. And do you find that putting the model together, that's your meditation? Like that's just a time you can, because I don't I talked about how social media to me is a distraction. It's not really having your mind focused, but I have talked about how exercise is a good time because you're not doing anything else, so you're with your mind. But like, I gotta believe, my brother was a big person into models. He did all the cars growing up and airplanes and, big, huge boats that took up half a table. Like he was totally into the model thing. I just never picked it up, but like, I could totally see how you have time then in your mind to. Can you speak to like how comforting it really is to be able to get away, but like be in your thoughts, using it as meditation?
Yeah. So for me, most of the time when I'm working on model kit, I'm just putting on music, and not really necessary to pay attention to, but just to have the background noise. And it just it helps me to really focus because the model kits that I put together are all in Japanese, all the text.
Oh.
Now, thankfully, they do have English letters and numbers, so I can find the parts that I need to find and follow the progress. But any tips or recommendations or anything that they have in there, it's all Japanese.
Yeah, no way.
So I can't. I don't have a way to understand what they're trying to tell me.
Correct.
So I have to really focus in on what I'm doing to make sure I'm not putting the wrong part on at the wrong time, or I'm not missing a part.
Yeah.
And which has happened a couple times where I get a little down and I'm like, wait a minute, something's not right here, and I have to actually try and wiggle the parts apart to get something in there.
Are these all being cemented, glued together?
No, they're snapped together.
Snapped together.
Thankfully.
Okay. That's what I was.
Yeah. Because if I missed it and it was glued together.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it's when I'm focused on it, I'm not really thinking about what happened that day or what's been going on that week or that month or whatever. I'm not really concerned with what's going on the social media or anything like that. I don't even watch the news.
Yeah.
So that never crosses my mind. But it really helps me to kind of quiet and just block it all out. And it's one of the few things that I've found that's really helped me over the years to just kind of quiet myself and calm myself.
Yeah.
Because I've dealt with a lot of anger issues over the years and let things get to me too much that I know I shouldn't. But unfortunately, I learned from my dad to just let everything get to you. And so it's one of those struggles that I've had my whole life. Because my parents were kind of the opposite attract situation.
Yeah, right.
My mom was Christian, my dad wasn't. My dad was always angry. My mom chose to be happy.
Yeah.
Which ties in with one of the
our quotes. Yeah, we're gonna get to those in a minute.
And so I had to deal with both of those sides because that's what I learned. And one of the first things that I learned to do to try and quiet myself was getting into reading. And I started doing that in middle school, and I started reading fantasy adventure books.
Yeah.
And for me, I could actually see that world. especially if the author's doing a really good job. I can see that world. I can see the action that's going on. I can see the monsters, the heroes, everything. And for me, that's a big thing. I love exploring my imagination. I love trying to think up of different things. And so, like with the model kits, even though I'm putting together something that somebody else created, I still get to put my own touches to it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to do is get more into doing custom paint jobs and exploring how I can make it look different and unique, but still look the same. And I haven't quite gotten there yet, but there's other people that I follow on Instagram that do that, and some of the paint jobs that they do are just phenomenally amazing. And it blows my mind how they're able to do that and make it look like that's how it actually came.
Right.
So, so hopefully I can get my skills up to par with that.
Yeah.
But I'm not like gonna be depressed if I don't get there. But it's something I like to explore. So.
Well, as we get ready to do those quotes, but there's a few things you talked about, and the one right out of the gate, you said that you were going through something pretty serious in your life 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, and you went to a Christian counselor. You knew that you needed to talk to someone, and I think that's important. And I love that in today's day and age that's understandable, and people need to talk to someone. I think everybody needs to be able to go, and especially in those times, but like just every day be able to like voice what's going on with yourselves and have someone listen. And listening is an important part. One of the things I like about the podcast is you just get to listen to people. Yeah. To be active, and it's teaching me sitting here and listening to you. It's teaching me how to listen a little bit more, and I think that's important. And so that's an important aspect that you brought up. But then we're all raised differently, and we have no control. And sometimes I bet you there's a lot of people listening that are in that situation. Maybe it's reverse. Maybe it's whatever it is. But then you've got to figure out how to navigate that. Yep. Sometimes by yourself. Sometimes you got to talk to someone, and then finally you go into this third part where you're just like, when you're doing your model thing, it's kind of just a time to like focus and get relaxed though, and kind of clear your mind and just get comfort in that. And the other part I like about that, I guess I said 3, but you're trying to grow in that aspect. Yes. You're not just settling on he's super good, he's got 50 or whatever, or you got 30 more to build. Like, you want to improve as you go, like whatever it is in life. Sometimes you're like, well, it's just your job you got to get better at. Well, no, it's like all aspects of your life. If anybody's watched this podcast worth anything, it's like it's all aspects of your life. You want to make sure you're trying to improve and get better at it. Otherwise, why are you doing it? You probably put the first one together 20 years ago,
even more than that.
So if it wasn't a challenge for you to try to improve yourself, then
because it's like I said, the first few model kits that I ever put together were the kind of standard automobiles and jets, and I struggled with the glue.
Yeah.
I remember like so many of the windshields on the cars had glue stains all over them. And I'm like,
it could be why I stopped the first. I think my first one was like glue, and then I just quit after that. That's why I never got into it. But
so that was part of the other aspect that drew me into the Gundams was I saw big print, snapped together. I'm like, yes, I don't have to worry about all that glue all over the place. But over the years, I learned how to apply it better and when needed and everything. So and just got to keep moving. And one of the biggest things for me is I have to set a goal for myself. I'm not like, I have the habit of just kind of going with the flow in life. And when I do that, like, I eventually start to feel it. Like, I'm in a rut. I don't feel good. I need to set a goal, and I need to, work towards it. And so whether that's getting through a course to expand my knowledge for work-related situations, or watching other people, how they put model kits together and picking up new techniques and how to clean edges and how to assemble it together or how to paint it better, different things like that. That's how I found that I progress to the next level, is by setting a goal and sticking to it. And that's one of the things that some of my friends have commented about me, is that we're like, yeah, when you get focused on something, you don't let anything stop you. You keep going. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's just part of who I am.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And then again, in every aspect. I mean, just we're using our modeling as. Is there a name for that? I shouldn't call it modeling. Right? Is there a word?
Model building.
Model building.
Modeling's more like.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of when I said modeling. Right? Yeah, I got it. But model building for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't ask because what have you done? I know you've been busy behind the scenes at church because we always try to talk about like, are you doing anything? So what are you currently, or what have they had you do, or what have you volunteered to do, or what have they volunteered you to do at Second Place?
So, I think shortly after I started coming, I got involved with doing the video
Okay.
for the services. And then I got recruited into taking care of the kindergarten group, and which I really enjoy because I like, as silly as it sounds, maybe, I don't know, but I like being around babies.
Yeah.
I like being around little kids. They're so full of life. They're exploring the world around them. They're trying to figure things out, and they just laugh at everything.
Yeah. Well, you get to be Godzilla a little bit.
Yeah. So like when the church that I grew up in, I used to help out with the kindergarten class there. From the time that I was in high school to eventually when I ended up leaving. And one of the things that I did back then when I was in high school and doing the kindergarten class was kids would climb all over me and, kind of roughhouse with them or whatever.
Right.
But, and so I've always enjoyed doing that and just being able to be kind of a protector for them too at the same time, and I've had a couple people over the years come up to me and thank me actually for being in there because from their perspective, they said that they don't really see a lot of men in that, and they feel that it's important for the kids to be around men.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it actually touched me pretty deeply when somebody told me that because I never really thought about it from that perspective.
Right.
So that's something that I enjoy doing. And I've helped out with various other areas. Now with our current situation, I'm doing first impressions. So I help with setting up the chairs, cleaning them, taking them down, getting everything set for the services. And I do also help with the video. So I help with the tech side once in a while, which I enjoy. And I'm looking forward to when we get to the new facility to seeing how I can help out. And now that I have this new job, it's definitely going to open things up for me to be able to be available more.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things I always regretted before. In the past was when I had two jobs, I was working almost all the time, so it was hard for me to do a lot of things. But yeah.
All right, we're going to go through some quotes. You got the quote. So again, for anybody that's seen your first podcast, so just as a reminder, I've got quotes for the entire year, 366 from the previous year because it was a leap year. And I'm going to just run through. We could do a week at a time per guest, and then I ask them to pop in on every quote or whatever one that kind of stuck out to them for that week. So you have this week, the first one I got, you'll never silence the critics.
Yeah.
Not too much on that one?
No, I mean, I agree. There's not really much you can do about what somebody else thinks about you.
Mm-hmm.
You can be yourself, be natural. If somebody doesn't like that, that's on them, So and you really can't focus on. It's nice to when you have a friend or a family member that is supportive of you and critiques you, to accept that and learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
When it's a complete stranger or somebody that you don't have a good rapport with and they criticize you, you can take it with a grain of salt, but it's not worth dwelling on.
Have you always had that, or have you had to learn that?
I had to learn it. I definitely, when I was younger, I struggled a lot with not fitting in.
Yeah.
I couldn't really figure out where I fit in the world around me and stuff, and so
Yeah.
it made it hard because I couldn't really talk to people, and like I didn't feel included in the groups. Even when I was with a group of people that I was familiar with, I didn't feel like a part of it. And so it took a while for me to get to the point where I was like, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm me. I like what I do. I like what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's good. The second quote, I think, kind of goes the same. Don't waste your time with explanation. People only want to hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
I said at the end, kind of what you already said. Then forgive. Oh, why do I waste energy on people that have their mind made up before we even talk? What do I win by trying to convince them otherwise? Life's too short to waste your time and energy on those people. So
yeah, and it's one of those things that I've been observing online with a lot of the social media culture.
Yeah.
People are sitting there trying to yell at each other, like trying to win the argument. And so you're wasting your energy, both of you. Like you're not going to agree to what they're saying. You're not going to agree to what they're saying. Drop it. Move on.
Well, that's what came back. I mentioned the word belief, or you mentioned, we kind of talked about it a little bit, is if someone believes something, that's at their base core. And if someone else believes it, it's at their base core. And then you can't convince someone to change a belief.
Unless they're in the position in their life where they want to.
Thank you. That's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. And so I just found some things on YouTube because, again, you said it too. You watch people making through your modeling, but I watched on YouTube where it's called Middle Ground, and they have someone talk. I mean, every political thing you want to talk about, they've done a video on it. When they are in person, they are talking respectfully, and most of the people they've had on there are trying to hear the other side, and they all hug and shake hands at the end of the meeting, and they didn't convince either otherwise, but they were like, I didn't know that about that part of you. And so I think that's important.
One of the shows that I do follow, the personalities that I follow online, is Steven Crowder, and he does occasionally a thing called Change My Mind, where he goes out to a location, most of the time he tries to focus on college campuses, but he goes out there and he chooses a topic, and he puts out a sign, and he opens the platform for anybody to walk up and try and change his mind on his position on that particular topic, whether it's guns, abortion, education, whatever. And he tries to have a dialogue with them to learn what their perspective is, to see if it's actually their belief. Because a lot of times what he finds is people are regurgitating what they're hearing online.
Right.
And once he starts to be like, okay, well, what about this? What about this aspect? Have you looked at this stat? Have you looked into this? And sometimes they're very open to it, and they're like, I hadn't considered that. I hadn't looked at that, or I hadn't seen it. And it's very cool to see. And it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes it gets somebody talking with them, and they're just very angry and want to chew them out for having an opinion that's different than theirs. And so what you were describing kind of reminds me of that, because, like I said, he's open and willing to have his mind changed if the person can convince him.
Yeah. It's just being willing to ask questions and ask yourself the questions.
Yeah.
Joe brought that up in a message a couple weeks ago. You're not a victim. That was the quote. You're not a victim.
Yeah. So this is one that I've wrestled with on several occasions throughout my life, because I know it's true. I know I'm not a victim. But like this past year and a half, when I lost my job in October of 2019, it was hard not to feel that way. Because I was working for a company, and just out of the blue, they're like, yeah, we don't need you anymore. And I was like, wait, what? And so I was trying to wrap my mind around it. And like I said, it was very much a struggle. And it took a while into last year before my mindset kind of changed on that. And even though there was a lot of times where I'd still get angry about the situation because, again, I felt it was unfair.
Right.
And just ridiculous in general, I started to realize and believe in my heart that God had something else in mind for me. And so once I kind of got into that mindset, it started to help me to focus better. I didn't understand what it was.
Yeah.
I didn't know what his path was for me. And it was very infuriating a lot of times because I'm like, okay, any day now, like, you can share that answer with me. I'd appreciate it because it was very much a rough year. I had to take on 2 part-time jobs just to be able to stay afloat and pay my bills, and really got down to the wire. And but eventually, God led me to a new job, and it's been a challenge to get that started. But just completed my first week, and so I'm looking forward to the future with it.
Yeah, the quote, again, I don't make up the quotes. I kind of read them, and then I something jumps out about it, and so it sounds like the same thing happened to you when I send it to you. Like, it's not to say that things aren't going to happen in life, and actually guaranteed things are going to happen in our lives. And as soon as we realize that we're all victimized because something happened, but we're not victims, meaning, okay, it happened, and this is my take on it. So what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
Because I can't go back and convince my boss to take me back, or whatever. So that's kind of why it stuck out a little bit more to me. Like, bad things will happen. Gotta acknowledge that first. It doesn't make me a victim.
Like, my father is someone who chooses to be a victim in his own mind. He believes the world is out to get him. And I'm not trying to disparage him or talk bad about him, but it is his mindset. He's been like this as far as I can remember, and it's one of the things that kind of causes us to butt heads, because I know he's not. I know if he really wanted to put his mind to something, he could do it. That's the kind of guy that he is.
Yeah.
But he chooses not to. He chooses to live in that victimized mindset, like, well, I'm not, financially this way because of this or because of that, or, when this happened to me as a kid, it's like, yeah, it happened to you as a kid. It's not happening to you right now. Move on. And I try my best to try and point that kind of stuff out, but it's hard because he's not in the mindset to listen to it. And again, if somebody's not in the mindset to change, you're not going to convince them to. It's just going to cause more of a rift. So most of the time, I just let him speak his mind. Go, okay.
Yeah, you're there for him. Yeah. You're listening to him. But you're right. Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. I guess this theme for the week was more about because I think this is all as you're growing, and hopefully you learn it sooner than later. But sometimes it takes a long time, or you just mentioned sometimes it's just a lifelong lesson for some people. But had you written anything down for that one, or
not really?
No, because they're all about this. They all are similar in aspect.
Yeah.
I do like these last. I got a few here. Let's go in order, technically by the date. The first big pitfall is to let society define what happiness is.
Yeah, I said for this one, so true. I've never really been one to try and fit in with society. Always just done my own thing. Definitely easy to fall into that trap, though. Because everybody wants to belong.
Yeah.
Introverts, extroverts, everybody wants to belong. It doesn't feel good to feel alone. So, the easiest thing for most people to do is just jump in and go with the flow. And that's what ends up leading to some people into drugs and alcohol abuse and all sorts of other things. So you're stronger when you can resist that flow. Yeah,
there's a separation between being accepted or loved and happiness. It's actually two different things, and I think people feel like being accepted is going to lead them to the happiness, and that's just not the case. There's only one person, and now if anybody watching, if you want to throw comments down below or email me in the comment section or in the description, I have my email. and you have your own opinion, your own input, we would love to have a little chatter on the bottom.
They're wrong.
Right, because I think some of these, when I say it, and again, I didn't write the quote, it's just something that stuck out to me, and that's why I wrote it. So there's only one person in life that can make you happy, you.
And that is so true. Again, not to harp on my dad, but going back to him, he chooses not to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
When he married my mom, her family actually disowned her for a while. They didn't like him. They didn't want her to have anything to do with him. But she saw something in him and chose to be with him and to love him for the rest of her life. And she loved him until the end.
Mm-hmm.
She did lose her life to the second bout with cancer. But through all their struggles, she was always supportive of him. He could never see how much of a winner he was when he married her, how lucky he was.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, when they first got married, they struggled. They didn't really have a lot of money. They didn't really have good jobs or anything.
Yeah.
She lucked out and got into a job as a secretary for an accounting firm. Eventually, she became an accountant with that company and worked there until the end. And she became the one bringing home the money to pay all the bills and allow us to live the life that we lived. And I think part of my dad felt guilty about that because he's the man of the house, and he wasn't providing.
Yeah.
But he was. He was taking care of me and my sister. He was taking care of the house. He was cooking the meals for all of us and everything. He worked on the cars when it needed to be worked on, whatnot, fixed everything around the house. But he couldn't see that as a win. He kept feeling that he needed to be the one with all the money to pay for everything, so that way nobody else had to worry about it. And even to this day, it still persists in his mind. He still views himself that way, whether he wants to admit it or not. And so he's addicted to gambling, both the lottery and casinos,
mm-hmm.
because he feels owed to win the big jackpot for all of them, so that way he could take care of all of us. He could, live the rest of his life, not have to worry about it. He could take care of me and my sister. And I've tried to explain to him, Tara and I can take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, my sister's a nurse. She's very smart. She's good. Has a great career.
Yeah.
I'm a tech guy. Yeah, I struggled last year with the whole job thing, but I did find a job.
Yeah.
And I'm with a good company, and I've learned what I need to learn to advance myself, so that way I don't fall into that situation again. And I'm going to pursue that this year. I'm going to keep teaching myself new things, new technologies and techniques. But for him, he's always been unhappy. And it was part of the reason why there was a couple times where my mom, my sister, and I went on vacation without him, because he couldn't enjoy that. He would be like, oh, somebody's trying to break into our house. It's like, no.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like, even if he did happen to be lucky enough to win one of the big jackpots, he would still be miserable, because he'd be living in fear that he was going to be robbed, that somebody was going to try and kidnap me or my sister to, blackmail him for all the money. That's the world he lives in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to help him to get out of that. And again, I can't help him because he doesn't want to be helped. So, I mean, it's definitely true. Like, you're the only one responsible for your happiness. And
well, it's important that you're able to recognize, right? You're able to step back from the situation, recognize what's happening, mm-hmm. And then it's a matter of you're like, I'm trying to help this guy, and it's all you can do daily, right? I mean, we pray about it, we be an example for them. And then, we try to help out wherever we can, and it's just a matter of, will he ever get it? Is this how he will always be? And then looking for the little things that you're like, oh, there's a little glimmer, right? Like there's something we could build off of and just continue through time. And that's all you can do on a daily basis. If you look too far forward or look too far in the past, individually, not him, but you, then it's tough. But if you stay in the moment, it's just like, it's fine. We could get through anything. So, and then last one, being grateful creates happiness, but being generous creates 10 times more happiness. So gratefulness and then generosity.
Yeah. So one of the things I've worked on this year is being more mindful about thanking God for everything. There's a young lady who I follow online, and she was sharing over this past year. She was sharing her and her husband's struggle with fertility, and they both had some medical conditions that made it hard for them to have it naturally. So they ended up going with the in vitro process, and I think towards the end of last year, they finally succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
And during her progress, she was talking about how the whole thing had brought her closer to God, how it had strengthened her faith and led her, on this path. And so, like, her expressing her gratefulness for all the little steps along the way and successes and everything helped me to put things a little bit more in perspective and, get that focus of being grateful for the here and now. And try not to focus on what isn't there, but be grateful for what is. And so I try to make sure each day when I pray to God that I'm genuinely thanking Him for what I have, whether it's very little or big or whatever, just being grateful for it.
Yeah. So. Anything else you thought about before we got here to get started? You want to get off your chest?
So I was going to say, in regards to the second part about being generous.
Yeah.
One of the things that it's kind of silly, but one of the things that I've felt bad about this past year is not being able to give as much to the church to help out with just everything in general. Working the 2 part-time jobs and having very little coming in, it was a step of faith for me to tithe regularly.
Yeah.
I have been. And so, like, one of the things that there was before I lost the last big job that I had, we had that, there was that leadership conference. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
With my work schedule that I had at the time, I couldn't actually attend. So I went up to the person that was leading it and I said, how much is it for one person? And they told me, and I said, okay, how can I give that? I didn't want any recognition or anything. I just wanted to be able to make it where somebody else that was available and maybe in a bad financial spot could attend if they really wanted to. So it helped. I mean, I felt really good about doing it because it was like somebody else is going to get to go.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to with this new job is it's going to give me that buffer zone, that comfort level where I can give more generously and hopefully be able to help out with other areas, not just doing the normal tithing, but being able to give extra.
Yeah, one thing that's a common theme that you've spoken throughout this whole thing is your willingness to give and help wherever they need help, from the littlest, and whether it be your finances when you're able or not. It just sounds like you listen for the Spirit. And really, you're like, it felt good. Like, that's what felt good about it, right? Like, it was just like, God, I felt it in my heart that I was supposed to give. And the extra benefit was that person that was like, I want to go, but I can't afford it. It's like, oh, we just got gifted from someone you'll never know. Yeah. But also the fact that you're like, it's good when we listen. Yeah. When we hear the Spirit and we go with that and we listen to that inner voice. That's what I call it. We listen to that inner voice, like, you should give. And probably part of you is like, I could use this money for something. Yeah. But you were faithful to hearing from God. So that's awesome. Anything else? I think we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I appreciate you stepping in and sharing so much. Obviously, a unique hobby that we haven't talked about yet, but hopefully some people are watching this, you're like, I do that too, or I'm familiar with that, or my family does that, and so, I think that's great. So I'm going to close this out here. One of my quotes is from Jim Quick, one life, just one. Why are we not running like we're on fire towards our wildest dreams? I am David Joshua Vales. I've had Derrick Szymanski Jr. Jonathan Andrew had set us up, so he partially produced, but then he had other things he had to run the soundboard for church. So I, if you noticed, have been kind of producing the second half of this. So with that, I'm going to say have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Bye.